Kia ora no tātou, Mr Chair. Naturally, we do stand in this third reading and support this bill, but I'd like to acknowledge the new Minister in the House, Mr Boscawen. I haven't had the chance to personally or professionally acknowledge his elevation. And although there's a spirit of adversarialism in our politics, I actually wish him, in the context of our overall parliamentary mission, good luck, and look forward to many a partisan bout. But very few of us actually make the status of being ministers, and I acknowledge the new status that you currently have. Rest assured, Mr Quinn, those words will not be wasted on you. Now, I mean no personal disrespect, but as befits this House, the truth must emerge. And in that way, sir, well, you may achieve one or three things, Mr Quinn, but the dizzy heights to which Mr Boscawen's current status represents, and occasionally his state. Yep. Well, actually, the more you talk, I'm reminded of the Muppet Show. Sir, there was a Muppet Show that was based on the Wizard of Oz, and there were three characters, sir. One was looking for his brains, the other was looking for his heart, and the other his courage. Sir, in that member, all three issues are combined and embodied in one figure. Multitasking. Sir, I need to come back to this bill, and other members have spoken about the deeper themes, and sir, they're legitimate themes. And whilst they may stray slightly from the provisions in this bill, the themes about savings and Kiwisaver and refinements made to that scheme, sir, are an attempt as a nation to provide an avenue and some products that New Zealand families can put their money into. It was never going to be easy. Dr. Cullen, sir, in our time, created the architecture around this scheme and provided different incentives, and these refinements do actually make the scheme work a wee bit better, but the scheme is only as good as the money trickling into it. And therein lies the major deficiency with the thinking represented by the government around this theme, this area of government. Despite having, sir, a goal and the rhetoric to deepen the reservoirs of capital, because we all know one of New Zealand's great economic challenges is the absence of adequate capital and our reliance on overseas sources of capital. So it's disappointing, sir, that this bill really, whilst it scratches at the surface, it doesn't actually signal how we as a nation, under the stewardship of this current government, short though its reign may be, what they are actually doing, sir, to deal with this deep structural problem. Now, it may be said, sir, that they are largely of the view that it's not really a problem, provided, sir, that the costs of the state can be melted further and further down, obviously with more and more indiscriminate cuts of the sort that we've seen and heard about, then the overall position of the nation is actually not as parlous as some of us think it is in respect of capital accumulation. But, sir, that's a very impoverished view to have about future generations of New Zealanders who have joined the many wakas leaving Aotearoa in the bright flight, going to Aussie and other places. So perversely enough, this bill is actually an incentive for some of them to come back with their valuable savings. Now, whether or not, sir, the return of that capital, the return of those people reverse the fortunes of our nation, anyone who has their roots here are obviously welcome to come back home. Sir, the difficulty with the current thinking reflected by speakers on that side of the House is that, number one, not only do they genuinely doubt, I think they do genuinely doubt, sir, whether or not of their nervous energy, political capital, intellectual capital in the form of the member sitting at the very rear of the House ought to be exhausted on that issue. But they will find, sir, moving forward into election mode, this is going to be one of the very critical issues. Because, sir, it goes to the heart of people's sense of destiny, people's sense of having a claim on the future of their children and their grandchildren in our lives here in New Zealand. can they, through savings, through these very modest refinements, but at a deeper level, through supporting the architecture which was established to attract people to make a sacrifice now, so the quality of their life will be improved in the future, but more importantly, the quality of our national economic infrastructure can be upgraded. Now, you've heard on our side of the House, sir, it's beyond cavil, there's no quibbling. We are firmly of the view that savings needs to be advanced significantly. We think that these refinements need to be augmented substantially. Now, it's been said, sir, we can't afford it. But in actual fact, it's the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, without any apparent strategy, without any apparent logic, who are quickly getting rid of options as to how we can build on the very key the key vehicles referred to in this piece of legislation, i.e. the vehicles that are up and running, managing Kiwi funds and delivering presumably quite good outcomes on them. The area that's sort of outstanding, sir, which hasn't been referred to in any of the speeches on that side of the House, is how are such funds to be deployed to meet the development challenges of our own country? How are they to be rewarded if they are deployed in our own country and growing the infrastructure? Because, sir, if we want jobs, if we want expanded incomes, if we want a reason so that fewer of our graduates, fewer of our families feel the need to go away from New Zealand, then we've got to provide the actual fiscal succour, sir, for firms to grow, create jobs and expand their income frontiers and their horizons. And that's not going to happen by lamely scratching around the sides. And to date, sir, beyond this bill, but still connected to this bill, there has been a paucity or an absence, sir, of any ideas that animate amongst our community or even animate across the House, because it's sad that an issue as critical as the future of savings and the availability of capital is not actually capable of being turned into an issue of bipartisan support. Our leader on earlier occasions has made those kinds of gestures only to see them repudiated for short-term petty political gain. So that's a very sad and disappointing way to advance this agenda, but such is life. We will debate those things as we get closer to the election date next year. Sir, GST is referred to here, and indeed there are other pieces of legislation wending their way through the organs of the House that will be back also dealing with GST. The changes here are changes that we support, sir, but let it never be forgotten that the GST tax is a consumption tax. Right. And whilst there are some economic reasons as to why a society may want to move to a consumption tax, the difficulty with the decision that the Treasurer has made and the Deputy Prime Minister has made, sir, is that shift towards a consumption tax was essentially funded by additional borrowings which have then been rechanneled and largely benefiting disproportionately those who have already the ability to pay. And that's why, sir, towards the end of this year, there's going to be not only a wind change, and it won't be a mild zephyr. Sir, there's a sea change. That's right. People are not going to be able to enjoy the quality of life they thought they were purchasing when they yielded their votes to the personalities on that side of the House. Sir, not only are they going to realise that they're poorer, their quality of life is diminishing, the services they took for granted are being cut, but, sir, it's going to turn into a deep and, dare I say it, for a number of New Zealanders, almost an existential problem as they watch each generation, more of each generation, move away and leave our country. And, sir, those issues we were promised would be arrested. Those issues, sir, we were promised would be dealt to effectively and would see a reverse. The only thing, sir, we've seen in reverse is the connection between what they promised and what they've delivered. So, sir, whilst we support this bill, what we will not be supporting as we move forward is the very partisan, short-term, shallow but quite nasty ideas that continue to come on the economic policy front from that side of the House. Kia ora tātou.
Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary will say no. The ayes have it.